It's National Law Enforcement Appreciation Day, and I want to talk about both sides of the thin blue line. Black people have an extensive personal history with law enforcement, going back to the era of slavery when law enforcement was used to capture and return slaves. Um, After that, when law enforcement was used to punish former slaves for not showing the proper amount of respect for white people and for being unemployed, the punishment of which was being forced back into unpaid labor. After that, for drinking and sitting and eating in areas that were deemed whites only, in addition to all the other crimes that they had created to make sure that we didn't get out of place, up to the present, where they're oftentimes called upon whenever black people are in places where some white people feel that we shouldn't be, or doing things that some white people feel that we shouldn't be doing, like sitting in our cars or sitting too close to them or walking down a street that they live on or barbecuing in parks where they're at or swimming in community pools and et cetera, and the list goes on and on. And it's gotten to the point where there's almost complete mistrust of law enforcement, to which we all have our own tales, and these tales cement our opinions. I personally have had several encounters with the police. I called the police to report a break in at my house. I was about 21 years old. I lived in Yermo, California. I worked at the Marine Corps base and I lived next door to a meth head. And I called the police because I believed that he had broken into my house because he stole several things, my Xbox, yada yada yada. And when there's sheriffs, because it's a small town, we didn't even have post like mailboxes. We actually had to go up to the post office to get our mail. Um, Sheriff showed up, came up to my house. First, I'd like to point out that he spent about 30 minutes outside talking to the meth head, laughing with him, which I later found out that they were cousins. And he came to my house. I let him in and he saw my dog. It's a friendly dog. He just died this year. R.I.P. August King. But he pulled his gun on my dog and he threatened to shoot him. And I'm like, well, like he wanted me to put him up somewhere. And okay, so I put my dog away. And he commenced to belittling my house, my lack of furniture. Mind you, I was young. Like I don't even buy furniture now because I'm like I refuse to spend money on stuff that doesn't matter, and I don't. Things like that don't matter to me, and they never have. But he like only had like a bed and a sofa, and like a couple of chairs. But he like belittled me because I was like didn't have a lot of things in my house. He talked about how can I be sure that anything was stolen? Maybe I forgot that I put it somewhere, maybe I sold it, maybe I threw it away and all these things. And at the end of the day, I never got a like nothing ever happened. Nothing ever came for it from it, and I didn't pursue it because I didn't feel safe. Like I don't know how to explain what it feels like to know that somebody with a gun is like literally trying to convince me that no crime happened, even though I called him to tell him that a crime had happened. And I let it go. A couple of years later, um, I got pulled over walking with my little brother. Like we were walking to the donut store, which was across the street from my sister's house. We left her house, walked across the street, and as soon as we walked across the street, we got pulled over by the police. And he made me give him all my information, my social security number, so that he could look up my name. He made me show him my identifying mark, which is a mole on my wrist. He asked me where I was going, where I was coming from. He wanted to know if I had a job and all these things. My little brother, who was about 15 at the time, he went in his pockets, went in his jacket, pulled out his, because at that time, like Everybody wore chains. He pulled off my brother's chain, asked him if he stole it. He made my brother take off his shoes and went inside his shoes and felt inside his socks and then like felt up his pants legs before he would let us go. I can't even explain to you how humiliating it was to not be able to stop somebody from violating my little brother on our way to the right outside the donut store across the street from where we began our journey. Not even a wide street. You know what I mean? Like we couldn't have been out of the house more than 45 seconds before we got pulled over. It wasn't like, and it wasn't a bad area either. You know what I mean? Like we lived in a town, a small town. We were still in that area of California, which we were in Barstow, and that soured me. A couple of years later, I was driving my same sister and her baby uh, from my parents' house back to where we lived, which was a couple of hours away, and small town again, Apple Valley, California. And we were out by Dale Evans Parkway, and I was trying to make a right hand turn. The police were driving towards me, and I put on my signal, turned right, got pulled over. Didn't realize what was going on, but apparently my signal light was broken. I explained to him that my signal light was broken, and he was like, okay, well, I need your license, registration, insurance. I'm like, okay, that's par for the course. So my sister's baby is 6 months. My sister at the time was 17 years old, and I believe that I was 24. Okay, so I pulled out all my information, but it took me a couple of minutes to find my insurance. He got impatient that it was taking so long to find my insurance, and like I got out of the car and was looking underneath the seat because I'm messy, and I look up and there are four like cop cars that he had called for backup for two girls and a baby. Mind you, he didn't say I couldn't get out the car. He didn't say anything to me while I was searching for my insurance other than the fact that he would keep coming back to the car asking if I had found it yet. And I have, to this day, I have never been able to understand why you needed that many cars of backup, because even if you were planning on towing my car and arresting me, how many cars did you need? For me, a girl and a baby. But that's neither here nor there. What I mean by all of this is those are experiences that I had. But I had one experience that is the reason why I can't all the way throw them to the wolves. I don't like not throw them to the wolves, but the reason why I can't 100% hate every single police officer ever made is because I learned how to change a tire because a sheriff showed me. Like, this is back when I was working at that same Marine Corps base. This was probably maybe a year or two after the first incident with my house being broken into. And I got off at 1 o'clock in the morning. In the base is always in the middle of nowhere, so I was driving through the mountains and I got a flat. And I pulled over to the side of the road. I didn't know what to do. I had never changed a tire in my life. My dad never showed me. My mom never showed me. I never been in a situation where I'd had to do anything like that before. And a sheriff officer pulled over behind me and got out of his car and looked at my situation and like stood there, held his flashlight for me, and told me exactly step by step I needed to do in order to change my tire. And I felt very accomplished after I changed my tire. And I thanked him, and he said, "Be careful," and I drove away. It may not seem like much to you, but I had already had a situation when I had called the police to where I was terrified. I had already, before that situation, had seen things happen to other people, and so I was always terrified when the police showed up. And that one time in the middle of the night when things could have gone terribly wrong, they didn't. So there are two sides to the thin blue line, and it's hard to decide because you need police officers to maintain certain levels of justice or law enforcement, but on the other hand, many of them are often the cause for the things that happen negatively to us. So, yeah, like it's a thing. It's a thing. You make your own decisions, but remember that there for every five police officers that will disrespect you and treat you like an animal, there may be one, and he didn't have a partner. He was by himself. He didn't call backup. So I know you guys are out there. I know you guys are out there. I just hope that there's a growing amount of you, and I hope that you're not disappearing.